You're listening to She Speaks, a Let Her Speak podcast that celebrates women's fearlessness, resiliency, and readiness to change the world. Hi, and welcome back to the She Speaks podcast. I'm your host, Catherine Porth, the founder of Let Her Speak. One of the neatest things that came out of the She Speaks project was the honor of being able to follow along with each woman's journey, both the ups and the downs. I know for a fact, if I had asked Steph B where she thought her life would be 2 years from now, back when we recorded the episode you're about to hear in July of 2020, there's no way she would have predicted all the twists and turns it took. I don't want to give too much away, except to say that after hearing our interview from 2020, you need to stay tuned for our follow-up conversation to hear about the changes and growth Steph went through that neither of us could have ever predicted. But right now, let's travel back to July of 2020 with Steph B. She Speaks series, and I'm really excited for the guest we have today. We have Steph Blue, who is originally from London, but now lives in Knoxville, Tennessee. She has started 2 different entrepreneurial journeys. She is a part owner of the Becoming group, as well as the Business Storyteller that she runs. And in addition to that, she actually has a full-time job where she works for the Knoxville, Tennessee Chamber. Yep, go Knoxville. So welcome.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, thank you so much for being with me today. So I always start off with, asking what is your story? What's your passion, your purpose, and how's that led you to where you are now?
So that's such a big question. I'll say my passion is 1000% women. I love women, and I love small businesses. So both in one is just perfect. For me personally, it's so strange because I never thought I would be doing anything where I'm like working full time and trying to manage stuff on the side as well. So that's been a bit crazy, but getting to the point, my passion, I would say, is drove from my love for women. I started off, it's so funny, the story of actually how the Becoming even came about is a very interesting one, similar to what you said about Let Her Speak. I met up with a girl who became my friend from Endeavour Summit. I met her, and she actually used my code to come along to the summit. And her name is Bree. And I sat down with her and told her, hey, we went out to eat. And I was like, I wanted to talk to you about something because she's an entrepreneur. She does like lashes and has her own little business as well. So I wanted to know, like, how did you kind of get started? I have this idea in mind, which I kind of feel like is a bit crazy. And I need another female to tell me if it's crazy so that I don't like fall flat on my face. And I told her a bit about the Becoming and just the idea that I had to basically start a women's society that allows women to interact with other women similar to themselves, but also very different. And I told her that I took the Myers-Briggs personality test, and I thought it was so interesting to kind of see that, kind of learn more about myself. And I was saying to her, the more I've learned about myself, the more I kind of feel like I'm able to maneuver through a lot of situations that have occurred. So I said I wanted to start a women's society that hopefully can do the same thing, where women are learning, really detailed information about their habits, their strengths, their weaknesses. And once they learn that, they can then use that as a method to basically make themselves better and to really live their best life. So she was like, yeah, that's a great idea. And she had a whole bunch of ideas that she added in. And by the end of the meeting, we were just like, okay, well, let's just do this. So that's how the Becoming launched. With the Business Storyteller, like I said, I've always had a passion for women, but also telling stories as well. I absolutely adore journalism, anything writing or doing interviews I love. So I decided to I had quite a large following after my husband won The Voice. And I was like, well, okay, how am I going to sustain these people being here? So I kind of thought, okay, well, what is it that I love? Because I really want to be authentic to who I am rather than just try and be this Instagram girl that I'm not. So I I thought, okay, I actually want to make a difference. And I feel like if people knew the story of small businesses, then maybe it would help them shop there more often, and they would see that even businesses that look the same, they're completely different because of their stories. So because of that, I then decided to launch the Business Storyteller, where COVID completely messed me up, but I was supposed to be going around to different businesses and getting some B-roll, just kind of interacting with the owner and finding out, just picking their brain on, how they started their business, what inspired them. And it worked really well with obviously me working at the chamber. I was then able to kind of just put two passions together. So hopefully that's not too long-winded, but that's basically a summary of how everything all began.
No, not at all. That was great. I mean, the more details, the better too, to really understand how you got from point A to point Z and all the points in between. So what, as far as you going back to you talking about how much you love working with women, do you have a thought of, where did that come from, or how did that start? Has it just always been something, or?
Great question again. Honestly, I don't even know. I think while I was in university, I built a really close friendship with a girl who's currently my best friend now. And we had this thing where every other day when we would have like girls over to our house, we'd be having discussions about stuff. And after just kind of listening to different stories of just a variety of different women from all over the world, it was just kind of like, I thought, wow, something just kind of lit up in me, like, oh my God, as women, we are so powerful. Like, we have so much power in us that we don't even know we could tap into to do so much. And I think it was just at that point that I was like, obviously I'm married to a man, but I was like, I really love women. Like, I love how strong we are, and I want to figure out a way to consistently feed our strengths. And at that time when I was in college, I didn't know how I was going to do that. I just knew that I want to do something that tells the story of women. I knew that. And then, yes, just slowly as the years went by, and then even me moving to America and meeting again just more different women, it kind of made me think, okay, this is definitely something that I want to be involved in some way. I want to do something that's changing the lives of women, but actually making a tangible impact in their personal life where they can actually see, learn more about themselves, and really tap into their strength as well.
Okay. So I know Myers-Briggs is a big part of it, but do you do like Enneagram and a lot of the personality? And is Myers-Briggs your favorite, or is that the primary one?
So Myers-Briggs is the primary one. It is my favorite, I can't lie. And I think for me, it was only because it was the first ever one that I did. So I had a bit of like a weird sentiment to it where I was like, I want to be loyal to this because this is the one that's really helped me to learn so much about myself. So that's the only reason why I've stuck with them so far, and kind of just based all of our content based off of Myers-Briggs.
Okay. Which makes sense. That was one of the very first ones I've ever done too, is
Oh,
Myers-Briggs, which honestly, I can't remember what mine was anymore. Yeah. I just know my personality type at this point in general, but have you like continuously done it every so often to see if it changes at all?
so it's so funny you say that, right? Because I did a post the other day on the Becoming page to say that at first I was super freaked out, like, oh wait, hold on a minute, why have I gone from, I was an ESTJ to an ISTJ, and I'm like, how have I just gone from extrovert to introvert in less than a month? Like, how did that happen? And it wasn't until I kind of sat down and was just kind of just meditating and thinking to myself, like, no, this is a good thing. It changing means that I'm changing, I'm evolving, I'm growing. And it's okay for it to be one thing one month and one thing the next month. That just shows me that I have like multiple layers of who I am one month. Not that like I have multiple people inside me, but like I have multiple layers to my potential. And that's what we've tried to tell a lot of the women on our page too, because a lot of them went through the same thing where they're like, 1 minute I tested on this and then I tested on that. So which one am I? And I'm like, you're both. It's okay to be both. You can be two things in one. So
Yeah, I agree. One part of my life is that I do a lot of like insights and research using surveys, but it's behavior-based surveys. And that's one thing that we talk about a lot, is that a survey is a one-time snapshot of what's going on in that person's life at that moment.
And for your personality, it's the same thing. It's the context of what was going on in that moment when you were taking it. And it shows that you're changing some of the things that remain the same in your personality. And when it changes, if you're under high stress situations like we are right now versus kind of your normal situations.
Exactly. And that was the same for me. I think when I when it said that I changed to an introvert, I realized that was because of my environment at the time. At the time, I'm still working from home, kind of doing like a hybrid thing right now. But at the time, I was just completely at home. And I discovered a different side of myself where I'm like, oh my God, I love being by myself. Like, this is fun. So I think that side of me, like you said, was kind of like really predominant because of the current climate of what was going on. So.
Yeah. So considering, you've obviously had experiences spanning across the pond, are there, and this is one thing that I love, since I also am a person who loves to travel, is have you seen working with women in the UK and in Europe in general, and working with women that predominantly are probably all Americans, and some of them maybe have never even traveled outside the US. Have you seen more similarities or more differences on how women's groups kind of function together?
So, because when I was in London, I didn't do too much apart from what my church was doing that involved women.
Mm-hmm.
I wasn't really doing like a whole lot in comparison to here. But I can say that in terms of the women that I've dealt with, like on the Becoming, who are also from England, and then you have some that are from America, the one observation that I have found is that in the UK, and this is a very general statement, I feel like women are a lot more closed. They're not as open to being very vocal about certain situations that they're going through. Whereas I found that more of the women who are based here in the US were a lot more vocal and just spoke up about how they were feeling, which was really, really interesting to me. Not only that, but women who seem to have traveled less had, and I guess this is more of a fact, it makes sense, but had more of a narrower mindset to the situation. So they wasn't as quick to see the glass half full as though they were to see it half empty, which was again really, really interesting. So it's been kind of, and that's a very big generalization, but that's the main kind of trend that I've seen between the two. And I feel like both communities are incredible because of the fact that women everywhere just seem like they want to support women. They want to do something to push that other woman, but it's just some women go about it in a much more different way than others. That's what I've found.
No, that makes sense. That absolutely makes sense. But at least it's nice to know that, at least in your experience too, that women, no matter what, you just want to support your fellow women.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So, with the business storyteller side of life, obviously getting a little derailed right now, not be able to. Have there been, at least in the amount of time that you've been able to get to know some small businesses, have there been some really incredible stories that have come out of that?
Oh my gosh, yeah. One of the most recent ones that I'm working with, or that I worked with, our contract's finished now, but was a Yoni egg company. They're a female company that uses crystals and create it into like a Kegel ball. And when I first spoke with them, I was like, this isn't really something that I feel comfortable talking about on my social platform. I don't know how to fully encourage women to do this without some people thinking, oh my God, she's encouraging us to put an egg inside of us. That just doesn't sound good. But it was really interesting to see the lady that I worked with, her name was Samantha, seeing her concept of how she came up with it and how a passion that her mother had trickled down to her, even though she wasn't interested in it. It was so subconscious. She was telling me that when she grew up, her mom had all these really fine little crystals in their house and other little things that she noticed but didn't really take mind of. And as she grew up, her sister then got involved in it, and then at her house she had different stuff that again were like crystals and all these precious gems. And she said to me that how it was so strange because as she began to research it, and she like had a passion for women as well, she kind of thought, okay, she ended up coming across a brand that also did something that she currently now does. And she was saying to me that how it was so interesting to kind of see how a generational passion has now created a business for her that she's living off of. So that for me, that was a really interesting story. I didn't get to, there was so much I wanted to do with that, but because of COVID and the time restraint, it was so limited how much I could kind of tell the story, or her personal story, as well as the story of the actual yoni egg as well, and where that's come from. So I would say so far that has been one of the most interesting ones. I have another one that's coming up, and it's a girl who makes waist beads. And I've seen like women wear like the little gems around their waist.
Mm-hmm.
I was like, okay, let's kind of see how this goes. And she's another person whose story, again, is so interesting. And it's so cool to kind of see how a passion can translate into a business rather than you just thinking about what can make money. A lot of these women have thought about, how can I serve you? And that ultimately has been what has provided them income. So that's really cool to me.
Yeah. Yeah. And so I can imagine too with Yoni Egg that part of your job was to also help people be open to this new concept. It's
Yeah.
like, how do you go about even trying to accomplish that?
Oh boy, first thing is you have to be comfortable in yourself using the product. Because when I first told my husband about it, he was like, what? No, you can't do that. If you end up in the ER, how are we going to explain what the thing is? And I'm like, oh my God, you're right. How am I going to explain this to my parents as well? And all these different kind of fears were inside of me. And I had to kind of just take a moment and think, okay, I did a lot of Google research. See what is the worst case scenario using this product? And I kind of just allowed myself to be released of fear and thought, okay, the woman who I was working with, she picked out what she believed was absolutely perfect from what I described about myself, me not having kids yet, all of these different things. And I think once I had the confidence in myself and also had the knowledge behind it, that then helped me gain a passion for the product. But then once I tried the product and actually saw that it worked, I was like, okay, I have to share this. Like for me, my main reason for using the product was because of menstrual cramps. So I was like, okay, let's see if this really does help with menstrual cramps. And I kid you not, after I explained to the lady, I don't want to do the story until I know for myself this works, because I don't want to force promote something and it doesn't work for anybody.
Mm-hmm.
She was like, yeah, that's fine. So I took a few months and kept trying it and spaced it out between different days. And the month before I did the review, I then was like, oh my God, it's that time of the month and I'm in no pain. So that was when I was super amped up about the results. And it was that same day that I then recorded the video. So.
Oh, very cool. Okay, because I was wondering, I've heard of them, but I was trying to remember exactly what the use case was for it.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's interesting.
That would have been a lifesaver in college for me.
Oh, it's never too late.
That's true. That's true.
Oh, wow.
So what's your and I know I asked this in the spotlight that I do on social, but what's your vision for what these essentially side hustles right now are of what you hope that it can become?
That's such a great question. And I say that because I want to figure out a way to forever, and this sounds so corny, but I want to figure out a way to stay at the Knoxville Chamber and still make this business so lucrative that I don't have to do it. I can pass it on to somebody else, but I'm still doing what I love doing at the same time. So for me, I think the end goal for this would be that, or the overall vision for the two would be, as I said before, it would be to have the opportunity to one day get funding for the business storyteller, so that I don't just now tell the stories of businesses, but can go to different countries and tell the stories of different people there. I feel like it's so interesting to me to see how all of us from different places, different races, we are all a part of this one human race, that we have so many similarities. All of us are so similar in so many different ways. And I think once we learn each other's stories, that in itself will connect us to see, oh, okay, you may be from a different background, but we're actually the same. We've been through the same thing and you was able to come out stronger, so maybe I can. So I would say with that, it would be having the opportunity to one day travel and tell the stories of different people from all over the world, people that you would never even consider. One of the things that I wanted to do as well was to merge the becoming and business storyteller, and more so focus on homeless women and telling their stories and, different situations that they've been through, how they've ended up where they are, and hopefully figuring out a way to turn that into something beautiful and allow them to also live their dream, or see what I can do to help provide them an opportunity to either work with, I wouldn't say work for me, but more so work with me to build up more stories of other women to show, hey, I've been through this and I've got through it, so you can do the same thing. So that's super long what I just said, but hopefully that makes sense.
That's beautiful. That's beautiful. That's so the woman that I interviewed for episode 2, Jackie Holloway, a big part of what she does is a nonprofit called The Canvas Can Do Miracles. And her main goal is to help homeless people and people who struggle with drug addiction find their voice through painting and art. And she works with men and women to help them curate this skill that some of them maybe never even knew they had, so that they can sell their paintings and hopefully start making an income for themselves. But their stories of the people that are going through that program molds beautifully too into what your vision is. So that's really cool. Yeah. So with the work that you do at the chamber, then what is some of the primary things that you love the most about the work that you do there?
So I would say it's kind of twofolded again. I love the work. What I do is marketing, so all things digital marketing. So I do the press releases there. I run the newsletter, as well as overseeing social, or helping to oversee social. And that's super fun. I also have the opportunity to work with different businesses as well, like taking their picture when they, sign up to be a chamber member, which is really cool. But for me, it's not just my role that I would say. What I love, I've never been able to actually say ever in my life, sorry to other employers who may see this, I've never been able to say that I love my job. Never. I've always just thought, I'm just working so that I can make a living. That's it. But seeing how the chamber actually cares, like genuinely cares about the city and the community that they serve, that for me is a really, really big thing. I always want to make sure that I'm in a place where I can serve and I can help. And I find that a lot of the ideas that come from the chamber is always focused around serving, not around money, which for me is it's a very big deal. I used to work in a bank, and obviously with a bank, the driving force is money. So it's kind of amazing to just work with a company that genuinely has a passion for the people, has a passion for the community, and then also has people who work there who genuinely have that same passion too. It's not about money or anything like that. It's more just about what can I do to help serve our community. So that's why for me, is as long as possible, I want to be there so that I can do everything I can to hopefully just be a part of a community that, it's just a pipeline of serving. You're serving one person, they're serving you, you're serving the next. So yeah.
Very cool. So since you've been, a part of the general business community of Knoxville now, and you get to see it firsthand with the chamber, what are some things that you think really make Knoxville in particular a great place and a great community? And do you see anything that would be great if we could introduce or improve upon to really help our business community?
That's a great question. I think the one thing that I like about Knoxville is the friendliness and level of support it seems like everybody has. Knoxville goes hard for Knoxville. Like, that's something for me that I absolutely love. The community spirit here was the first thing I felt when I first arrived. And that trickles down into businesses as well. I love that the businesses here, most of the ones that I've personally worked with are always, again, I keep repeating myself, which is really frustrating. I'm so sorry. But I love the fact that they always have this mindset to serve their community. So that's one thing that I love. If there was anything that I would say could be improved, and this is probably just, again, my selfish reasons, that's it. It would just be to have longer store hours so that we can have the opportunity to sleep really late at night when we feel like it. But that's about it. I think for me, and I only say that because of the fact that where I lived in London, everything was open until midnight. So we had the opportunity, if we wanted to buy some chocolate from a random little chocolate store, you knew that that little small business wouldn't close until midnight. So no matter how you felt, as long as it was before midnight, you can go in there, have a nice little chat, and then grab your chocolate no matter what time it was, between like, I think they're open between like 8 a.m. and midnight, which is very long store hours. So I don't know how willing people here would be to do that, but that would probably be the only thing. I think other than that, I would say, I'd say that that's it. I think, honestly, everybody, from what I've seen, most businesses here are on a great track, and this is a great community to also start a business. It consistently kind of encourages that entrepreneurial spirit, which I think is really, really key to the success of a city anywhere, no matter where you are. So that's a big deal too.
Yeah. So circling back then to, you were talking about, at the very beginning, we were talking about how much you enjoy women and their stories. And so one thing I was wondering with that too is, what do you love most about being a woman?
Ooh, that's a great question. I love everything. I love the fact that I am able to bounce back very quickly. I feel like that's something that not that men can't, but I think that that's the strength of women. If you think about even, having children, the fact that we could go through, I read something, I don't know how true it is, but it said that the closest a woman or a human can get to death is childbirth. That's the closest you'll ever get and survive it most times. So for me, I think our capability to consistently come so close to the edge when we feel like we're about to give up, but we're still able to just say, no, I'm going to carry on. I'm going to keep going. That's a big deal. Our ability to, I believe that a woman we are this is so controversial, but it's a big deal as a woman to be able to hold the structure of a family also together. A man is very important, but there's nothing like a mother's love as well. So for me, I'm not pregnant as yet, so I don't want to throw that out there, but having the opportunity to one day be a mum and actually see the product of something that I've created, as well as my husband, to grow. As a woman, I feel like that's super exciting. So there's everything. I would say there's honestly nothing I don't like apart from that time of the month about being a woman. I absolutely love everything. I think as human beings, we are the most incredible creatures that God could have created, period. So
I can't disagree with you.
No.
So then, with that, and the, just the power of essentially sisterhood is a lot of what your story is about. And this is a difficult question. So, don't feel like, you have to have the absolute right answer for it, but where do you see, because this is a big topic across the world, but in the United States, of the question of equality in the workplace and equality at home, especially with the fact that a lot of surveys are showing that a lot of the stress and the majority of the work is falling on women, especially with having kids at home and having to work from home and everything else that's going on. Do you see where some areas of like programs or, education or resources or things that we as women can be doing to help fellow women to really advance forward?
That is a brilliant question. I think the first thing that we would have to recognize, and I'll say that this is not even just for women, this is for the human race. I'm gonna focus on one word that you used, which is really, really big for me, which is equality. And that's such a big word. But I would say it would be so important for us as women to see each other as sisters, no matter what color you are, no matter what background you have. I think once we all have that mentality, that will help push us forward. In terms of programs, that is a brilliant question. I know a few people who I personally have hung out with who do different things. I know Charlene is one of them. Charlene Nazir, I think you've worked with her before as well. She does a lot with women, as well as like Melanin and Money, making sure that women are being fed, in the Black community. which is incredible. I think that that's an incredible platform. But there's multiple platforms that I could kind of throw out there. I'm just trying to think of like the key ones that personally have spoke to me. That would be great. And I can't think of any right now, which is really, really frustrating because I can bet you as soon as this is over, they're all just going to come rushing forward.
We can mention it in the comments.
Let's do that. But in terms of like, yeah, I think it's so essential. Us as women can really be competitive as well. And I think that's because of our mindset of there's not enough room. There's not enough room. We have to try and get to the top. And that's the worst mentality we can have. If we have a mindset of, okay, I need to figure out a way to pull up my fellow sister, that again is consistently encouraging equality. It's encouraging opportunities for other sisters who are coming up. So for me, and that would be one of the main things that I would say could be a driving force behind making sure that we rise up together. There's not one seat at the top. I don't know whoever created that mindset, but there's multiple seats. And all of us have different passions. And even if they're the same, there's a seat for you. So that's one of the things I feel like would be super important to push as well.
So you foresee like, I mean, right now there's a ton of organizations and a ton of programs and all types of things that are dedicated to help women rise up in differing, genders or differing, not gender, differing industries or differing areas of the country or, what have you. Do you foresee that, a lot of those programs, since they seem a little fragmented a lot of times, is that the powers in these programs all working together and maintaining their own individuality in a way, but being able to all work together?
I think that would be the goal. That would be the dream. I don't know how, as much as my husband likes to say that I'm not realistic, I'm an idealist. I believe that being idealistic, that is the dream, to have them all come together, because each business is from just my perspective of talking with different businesses, are all missing this small part. And what one part is missing, another part has. So having the opportunity to come together, figuring out a way, collaboration is such a big thing. Like, it's impossible. It's borderline impossible to get what it is you want done by yourself. So I feel like with all those little missing pieces kind of being all over everywhere, if everyone wants to come together and figure out, okay, you do this and I do this, how can we figure out a way to have, especially if we have the same common goal, how can we figure out a way to collaborate more often, that we're now showing the world that we can do this? And honestly, it's funny because I see that a lot in Knoxville. A lot of people who will have like launches and stuff like that, they will always have vendors there, other businesses that, they want to promote, that they want to push forward. For me personally, an event that was, I think it was Trendfest, something that one of the influencers here did, that I was invited to speak at. That was how I actually first met the girl that I now do the Becoming with, Brie. So from collaboration, I've now been able to start up something with an incredible woman who has so many big ideas. Like that, a lot of the ideas that we come up with, people think it's me, and it's not. Like, I'm at home and she's just like texting away. So it's so important to see how collaboration has the potential to build empires. So 100%.
Yeah. I guess then my last question is, we talked a lot about your story and this vision and this beautiful idea, which I think can happen. So you can tell your husband that me as a realist, I do think that this could happen. I think it could. I'm more of a realist, but I also have an inclination towards optimism and idealism. So. Right. But is there a part of your story or something about you that maybe not a lot of people know about or realize that you haven't shared yet?
There is. It's so interesting that you asked that. I was just talking to my husband about this, funny enough. And actually, I think I told Brie this as well. I don't actually have a lot of confidence. I try to push confidence into people. But the one thing that I'm consistently every single day working on is confidence. And I think it's not confidence as in like, you look great or whatever. It's not that. It's more the confidence that you can do it. Even though it's so funny that I like to push people and be like, you can do it. And learn this about yourself so that you can do this. I'm still learning to take on the same thing I'm feeding to people, to feed it to myself as well. And that's probably something that a lot of people don't know. I think my social media makes it seem like she has all the confidence in the world, she has it all together. That's far from the case. I think without the help of God, period, I don't think I'd be able to have started anything that I've started, or even manage doing a full-time job and then still trying to do other things on the side. There would be no way. So that's probably one thing that I'd say, is that I'm working on every single day, is my confidence. And I think this is the only downfall as a woman, only downfall. And it could just be me as a female. I always compare myself. Like, I'm always like, if I go onto social media and I see that, oh my God, I should have been doing this today. I didn't do this today. And look at this, what this person's doing now. It looks like I'm actually doing nothing. I haven't done anything. I thought I did something, but I haven't. Rather than just staying in my own lane and saying, okay, it's okay that you didn't do this last week and that person did it last week. Pace yourself. This is your own journey. You're in your own lane, your own journey, and it's okay to sometimes fall short. So that's something that every single day I fight to make sure that I never have a mindset of comparison, ever. That I just consistently stay in my own lane. I try my best to uplift people while still running my own little race, and then figuring out a way to feed that same strength into me, which, thank God for my husband, because if it wasn't for him, a lot of the stuff that I do, I don't think I wouldn't even have started it. So if one thing you've probably learned about this entire story, there's always someone else there who's like, you can do it, who ends up then kind of partnering with me or feeding me to do the things that I do. So,
well, I can speak for at least all the women I've ever interviewed or just met, that it is definitely not you, this internal monologue of, oh, I'm not keeping up with what everybody else that I think is doing.
Right.
Yeah. Even I did a research study earlier this year, and the number one top of mind barrier that women felt they had in their own journey and their careers and business was that they had their own negative self-perception holding them back. So you're definitely not alone.
So good. Thank you for sharing that with me, because a lot of the times, and that's the thing as well, like a lot of the times it can feel like the struggles that you're having, that you're by yourself. And it's so interesting that, again, when you share the stories and you speak with other women, that you see, oh my God, like, I'm not an alien. Everyone else is feeling this too. And maybe if we work together, we can figure out a way to, like you said, but to help silence that internal monologue that tells us that you can't do this, or maybe this won't work out, or you're not doing what you should be doing. So,
yeah. And that's where, I have a love-hate relationship with social media too, because I feel it just perpetuates that internal monologue where what I find funny is I'll see a friend of mine post something, but then because I knew the entire backstory of what led to that I know the struggle that went into just this thing that looks perfect and clean and beautiful. And I think that has really helped me, and which is why I do these She Speaks series, is to know the backstory and the behind the scenes of the chaos and the just, the messiness of what happens when you're trying to forge your own path.
Yeah. Yeah. And I just want to shout you out, because Let Her Speak is an incredible, but I was saying this to you before, but I'm going to say it again. It's amazing. Like, I can't express to you how incredible it is. If any program that I am going to mention, it's you. Like, everything that you're doing for women is insane. And I'm excited for COVID to be over so that I can attend next year's one in person, next year's event in person. I'm really, really looking forward to that.
Yeah, that's the hope. That's the hope, is that we can actually do in-person stuff next year, and multiples of them.
Right.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for coming on today and sharing your story and everything.
You're so welcome. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, no, this has been lovely. And one thing I wanted to say too is I absolutely adore the fact that you found something that is helping you at the same time. I just think that a lot of women who are trying to either do a side hustle or just do something that they're passionate about, and maybe they have their 9 to 5 that they're happy with, but they want to do something else. And they feel like it needs to be something that they are the absolute 100% expert on, or that they need to figure it all out before they can even move forward. And I think it's beautiful that you share that. I'm working on myself at the same time. I'm trying to help other people, because that's the realness of what I would say most businesses and most of us out there are all trying to do.
Oh yeah, 100%. 100%.
Yeah. Great. Well, thank you so much. It was lovely speaking with you.
It's awesome being here. Thank you for having me again. Seriously, thank you.
Yeah, no, anytime.
Now that you've traveled with Steph through what life looked like for her back in 2020, tune in to our next episode where we unpacked everything that happened in just 2 short years. It's quite the journey. This episode of She Speaks is brought to you by our amazing partners at First Horizon Bank. She Speaks is produced, edited, and scored by the very talented Travis Tench at Oak Hill Audio. If you loved the episode you just heard and want to support Let Her Speak's mission of elevating real women's stories, don't forget to follow, subscribe, and share at Let Her Speak USA. Together, we will make our voices heard.